I wrote a empirical paper for the EMR journal, and the empirical paper was called Networking During Strategic Change in Small Organizations. My background is both in real estate and in working with nonprofit institutions, and this small organization of this particular paper was really going through some very dramatic times and had to make some very strategic decisions in their real estate portfolio. So that's basically what the paper is about, but we will have the link to the paper if you want to look at it. It's on the EMR website, but really my purpose is to talk about the actual process of writing it and submitting it to the EMR journal. First off, it was submitted in August of 2015. So it was submitted and then accepted in July of 2017. So you'll see there's a long process, but that's because it went through 3 major revisions, each time hopefully getting a little better. And to the credit of the editorial staff, you get some very, very helpful comments to improve the paper. It really, the first problem was that it didn't conform to the EMR format. So I urge you, if you write for EMR, that you go on the website and be very clear as to what that format is. Secondly, we changed it from a governance paper really to a networking paper, and really looking at the strategic change aspect of it. And then we also then took the fact that the small organization was a nonprofit and put it into the background, if you will, and brought out the size as a more important issue. We also, one thing, when you're writing these papers, you are restricted a total of 5,000 words. That is not a lot of words. So I urge you to make 3 to 5 points at most in your paper. And that was one of the challenges in my paper, was I tried to basically do too much in a very, very small space. The other thing too is create as many visual models as you can, because it really helps in explaining your concepts. I urge you, when you look at the if you submit to the EMR journal, be very, very, very careful on first going out and looking at what the final document looks like. And this is a very small, I'm not sure if you can see it, but example of what the very first page looks like. The document starts with an editorial comment, and then has your abstract, then has your synopsis, and then goes into the main paper with various, throughout the paper are various tables and charts and that sort of thing. So even though the format when you're writing the paper is very awkward, I'll just warn you that in advance, it helps to know what the final product looks like before you actually go and even start the paper. So I urge you to look at a final paper first so that you can put that visual image in your mind. Just some tips. The abstract is really pretty simple. It's no different than an abstract in any other journal article that you would write. The one thing to emphasize, though, is when you write for EMR, you will switch back and forth between a scholarly voice and also a practitioner voice. That sometimes is very, very difficult to do, but it is really one of the purposes of the journal, is so that it appeals to both the academics and the practitioner, and is therefore it is a marriage between those two. So the abstract is written in a scholarly voice, but then you switch to the synopsis, which is actually written in a practitioner voice, something that's very easy to read, short sentences and that sort of thing. The synopsis is only 800 words, so really when you go through it, just 1 to 2 paragraphs for each of the 5 sections they ask you to write on. And the 5 sections, are the purpose, problem, results, conclusion, and relevance. And when you're writing this, it seems very, very redundant. You've made these points throughout the main body of the paper, so why are you doing it here? Again, the reason you're doing it here is because the synopsis is something that's at the front of the paper that if a practitioner read it, they would know what your paper was about and they could comprehend the concepts that you were trying to convey. The other thing that, to be very clear, is do the synopsis last, because the synopsis is a synopsis. It is a summary. So even though it appears first as you're going through and writing the paper, do it last as you write the paper. Methods is a very, very short section. It's 200 words or less. And again, use the scholarly voice. And again, you will have 1,000 words as an appendix to really expand upon your research method. So this is just a very, very brief synopsis or summary of your research method. So again, write this one after you've written the 1,000 words for the appendix. It basically is a summary of your appendix. And don't cite various authors in this section. It's simply too short to allow that. The main 3,000 words out of the 5,000 words is in the main body of the paper, but that is not a lot of space to make too many points. So I've put in here, just to be helpful, some approximate word, and these are approximate limitations. They're not really limitations. I guess the right word would be suggestions, so that you do not have certain sections too heavy and that you cover all of the things they ask you to cover. The first is the practical problem. Why is it important? Again, this is in practitioner language, and so just few, if any, citations in that section. The literature review, you'll notice, is 500 to 750 words. That's roughly 3 pages. So the literature review, you really have to pick the seminal works, and you really have to pick the ones that support your argument, because 500 to 750 words is not a lot of space to do that in. So, and you'll hear me say this several times during this presentation, 3 to 5 points is about all you can support in the paper. The literature review is in the scholarly voice. Again, this is more directed to the academic than it is the practitioner. So again, you're switching back to the scholarly voice here. And then you move into the findings. That's 500 to 750, meaning roughly 2 to 3 pages again. And try to organize these by main headings, subheadings, and 3 to 5 big ideas once again. This is supposed to be, again, understandable by the practitioner, and so put any of the technical stuff in any appendix that you have. Lessons for practice, again, around 2 to 3 pages. This is written, again, for the practitioner. There's lots of suggests and seems to indicate throughout this section. And again, keep it to 3 to 5 lessons or so, supported by your findings in the literature. And then there's your contribution to theory. This is written for the scholarly. This is for the academics. It's written in the scholarly voice. 1 to 3 main implications to theory. And this is more similar to the discussion section of a paper. In all your sections, to the extent you can, use tables, charts, and figures. It not only helps to explain your concepts, it also helps to reduce the amount of words you need, and it also helps in the actual, how the actual article actually looks when it is finally printed. That is it. I would say then, in summary, there's about 3 things I would remark on. One is it's a bit awkward, the structure, as you go through it. So look first, again, as I suggested, at the final product, and keep that in mind as you're writing it. Secondly, it is difficult sometimes to go back and forth between the scholarly voice and the practitioner voice, but it makes some sense, and so it's a bit challenging, but you just have to work through that. And then lastly, the editorial staff at EMR is very good about helping you really improve the paper and working with you on it. So I encourage you to submit your papers. Thanks.